Welcome to the Gigs Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Sanz, founder and CEO of Gigs, the professional career platform for the live event industry. On this podcast, we're interviewing the very best in the touring and live event industry to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and the unreal moments of life gigging and lessons learned on the road. Today, I am thrilled to have a good friend, Lolo Kinser, on the podcast today. Lolo currently serves as tour coordinator for Tim McGraw. With a background in nutrition and business, she brings her passion for health on the road and builds community wherever she goes. Previously, she was the production coordinator for Chris Young and Jason Aldean and the tour manager for the Peach Truck. If you know Lolo, you know her heart, her positive and upbeat nature, and how she ensures every tour feels like home for the band and crew. Lolo Kinser, welcome to the Gigs Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Happy to have you. I want to just get straight into it.
Let's go.
So you're one of the greatest energies to be around, and you love to cultivate community, and we're going to get all into that. I want to know, what makes you lose it? What makes you just snap?
Snap. So snap might be not my motto. I maybe snarky might be more the way that I kind of approach situations and things that really is just, we do so much work to plan, so much, effort goes into prepping and making sure everybody has all of the knowledge. And when I say all of the knowledge that they need to do their job. And I think if anything, not necessarily causes me to snap, but to be snarky and hold people accountable is when they don't look, at that information that is right at their disposal.
At Master Tour, is that what you're saying?
There you go. Master Tour it is. That's coming. So, it's kind of ways in which I lightly tease that of like, it'd be really good if, you might look at, I don't know, this thing called Master Tour, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, so I try not to be a jerk about it, but also that level of accountability is very important because, again, you do your job so that way, hopefully 100 people plus don't ask you the same question over and over, and a lot of man hours go into, so they don't have to. And so when they do ask, it's almost like a light blow because it's just like, it's easy for you to ask, but I go to so much effort to have to make sure that you have everything you need. And so when you ask that question, it is a light blow to me saying that you didn't take the time to read it. So for me, not snapping, it's more so just that level of, I like to say I'm like the sister on tour, not the mom on tour. I don't handhold. I'm not a babysitter, but I will fight to the death for the people that I love and the community that I'm around. And so with that comes accountability. With that comes, holding people to a higher standard. And if they don't want to meet me there, then they may hear about it.
They may hear about it. Well, I want to talk about just the term tour coordinator, because you hear production assistant, production coordinator. Every camp, those roles can be crazy different and have very different leadership roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
So first of all, you as tour coordinator, I want to get into really what that is for Tim McGraw right now. But also you in this role, you are a planner. You are doing all of this before to get people who are not maybe planners or, in that production mindset. So I understand what you mean by the low blow of like, come on, I just did my job. Am I not doing it well enough? So what all goes into being a tour coordinator?
So I think it really just, it's to get straight to the point, it really is the glue of the back of house, the office, whatever that needs to be for whatever camp you're a part of. And it can look very differently, as you said, for each camp, but at the end of the day, this person is the glue for the camp. It's the one that takes pieces of information from the tour manager, pieces of information from the production manager, and really presents that to the team, because their roles are much more big picture. They're, having to deal with much more of the minute details of the tour and having to make sure that the staffing's there, all of those big picture details, whereas this person is the boots on the ground. It's the person that has to make sure all those dots are connected, whether it be a travel piece, whether it be, catering, whether it be I mean, anything you name of it, after show food, hospitality, advancing for runners, so all of those day-to-day movements for the show to actually happen and the band to actually be on time, happens from this position, whether it's called a road manager, whether it's called a production coordinator, whether it's called a PA, whether it's called a tour coordinator. It morphs into a lot of titles, but at the end of the day, this person that serves that role is crucial. And if you don't have the right person for that role, the whole camp and the whole tour will 100% suffer.
Yes.
So you'll feel that punch more than you feel some other punches of not having this person fill in those gaps. So like I said, it can morph, but it can also be frustrating. I think for me in this role can sometimes be a catch-all, and so you never know roughly what your job role is, because you kind of have to look forward and expect what's not going to be there and be that person that makes sure it is there. So you're always looking forward and trying to fill in those gaps. And if you don't, then you're the one that's going to be filling them the most, because those questions are going to inevitably find their way back to you, so.
And this is interesting because you're coming off of a full, pretty much 6-month tour, and you're on the out. You're so close to having some time off in July and August. So I'm excited about these your answers to this, of like really fully experiencing. You're that catch-all. You're that person that has to expect what's going to go wrong, try to prevent it. Let's talk about, you're in month 4 of a tour and you are really tired, and maybe some stuff's going on in your personal life, whatever it is, but you're just not having a good day. You are still that person that every person goes to when they didn't read the email, when they didn't check Master Tour, and they're asking what time breakfast is up, or they're asking, for a runner or something. How do you maintain your composure when you feel like, you're just not in a good place, but you're still that go-to person?
That's a great question. I think for me, it is such my personality. I'm such a people pleaser, which is great, but also my the end all to me, in some ways of this position, and in any position really, when you have so many people needing, information and things. But for me, I think at the end of the day, I want to treat, no matter how tired I am, how no matter how many things I'm having to juggle, and anyone on the road that has to juggle, that's just part of being on the road, of trying to be as positive as I possibly can be. And, my routine in the morning, especially on the hard days of when I'm still in my bunk and I haven't gotten out of my bunk, and it's usually day 3 because I do weekend warrior stuff.
And you're the first one out of the bunk.
Yeah, typically, first one off and the last one to get back on, is really just to take a moment of pause. Usually by day 3, I'm exhausted. You're averaging maybe 4 hours of sleep at that point. And I have to have like a self-coach moment of, I get to do this in a way that, I still enjoy what I do and I still love what I do. And despite no matter what happens today, like I want to show love and I want to be loved to everyone I encounter. And again, that sounds like, Lolo, whatever, but it's what I get to do and where I am in this moment, and there are going to be moments where I just, I want to breathe. I want to go for a walk. Sunshine's always great, but I know that I'll regret it if I snap, and that's why I say like snap is not really, my love language. Accountability is more. And I think being honest is also very incredibly important in these times, because everybody by that point is tired.
Yeah.
And as long as you're honest with the people that come around you, and, if they ask you, hey, you okay? Like, yeah, man, I'm just tired, and they have that approach, as opposed to, coming in all hot and being angry, or being, what you may feel stirred up within your soul of how you want to be. It's not going to make your day any better if you're going into it cold-hearted and not positive, because everybody needs that light. And I feel like a big part of my mission and a big part of my reason of being out there is trying to be a light, even when it is so dark around me that I have to be the light. And that is something that I have to constantly tell myself. And if I start to feel salty, or if I start to feel burned, I need to take a step away. I need to breathe, and then come back into it, because that is my mission. And that is the reason why I feel like I need to be out there. Ugh. And when that goes away, if it ever goes away, then at that time I know that it is time to take a step back, because it's not me anymore. It's the job. And I don't want to let the job change who I am.
That's so beautiful. Your mission, to be light, be love. Because, there's, and I didn't do it nearly as long as you have, but there were, on those, like that third show day when you're like, I don't even know how to pull positivity out of me. I don't even know how to pull social awareness out of me. And so that's amazing. You're fighting through that to be that. And I'm sure it's contagious too. And that can only help your community.
And it's also important to have an outlet, whatever that looks like to you. It could be going for a walk. It could be having a friend that you can go on a walk with. I have that friend, and we go on a walk and we just both let out the steam, because there's that trust component. There's that level of, if you're frustrated, you should get it out. You shouldn't harbor those feelings in, and, but doing it in a way, it could be working out. It could be, just breathing and exhaling, whatever it is in that moment, you almost need to prep ahead to know what that is for you. So when that time comes, and inevitably it will, because we're master jugglers out there, right? That's what touring is that you have that go-to that you need for that exhale, and you're ready, so that way those horrible moments don't happen, like yelling or just whatever that looks like. It's having those at your disposal to really reach for. And mine, like I said, is usually just breathing, some self-love and self-talk, and having a person to, even if it's just one, it doesn't have to be 100, because again, you don't want to turn it into a gossipy kind of thing.
Totally.
But having that one person that you can really just be honest and raw with, so that way you can get that out, process, and then hopefully move on. You don't want to spend much time there, but it is going to come, because we're all human. We're all built of emotions. But at the end of the day, like, you want to be your best face. Yeah. And I always want to be my best face. And again, go back to that, always be the love and the light for everyone around me.
So gorgeous. What is a problem that you think is the most common? I'm curious, the most common problem that you run into in this position when you're going to different venues or when you're at bus call. What is something that you feel like you're always having to work out?
Hotels.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I don't want to say that. Hotels can always, I feel like, be a headache, just because you can do so much advancing, you can do so much prep work, and the best thing that they're best at, I don't know how to say that other than the best thing that they're best at is losing information. So, it's like this person does this person, you talk to this person and that person, they don't relay the information, communication's lost, and then, no matter how hard. And then, what ends up happening inevitably is when your people show up or your drivers show up and nothing's right, and you're like, wow, how many times do I have to talk to people just to do their job? So that can be really frustrating, is when you have no control over the things that you try to have control over. I think the second one that I had to learn really the hard way, last year, we did a lot more fly dates last year, and you can't control weather and you can't control the airlines. That one's tough, because you can do all the prep work ahead of time. You can try to coordinate. Our camp kind of lives all over. And so you try to coordinate like landings of flights, so that way you can run and coordinate transport together and save money there and whatnot. And, one delay can really snowball effect, and, of trying to keep those things together and then trying to find ways in which to get them to the gig and all those things. It's really just goes back to the things of which I feel like you can't control. And you have to keep telling yourself, like, yeah, I did everything that I could do. And this is what happened, and I just need to pick it up and move on from here and do the best I can with what I have in front of me.
And solve the next problem. I would love to go through, especially just for production coordinator, production assistant, tour coordinator. I would love to hear a standard day for you. Like, let's say it's a Friday and you are just coming from Nashville, or you're coming from the last city. what does waking up on the bus, what time, and what is your routine in this position, and what are the tasks throughout the day that you're doing?
Great. So since we're towards the end of tour, typically our load-in has gotten more efficient, so it doesn't take as long. So thankfully, I get a few more minutes of sleep than I was when we first started. But typically, the wake-up call for me ranges anywhere from 6:30 to 7:30. Now I'm leaning more on the 7:15, 7:30. Don't have to be in the building until 8, whereas like early on the tour, I was getting in, 7 o'clock-ish, and then usually load out towards, I get back on the bus between 1 and 2 a.m. So that's kind of my standard day as far as how much I'm up in that terms. As far as the first assignment for me, really depends on when I get my runner, but is always start the day with coffee. I love researching local foodie spots, always go local with that. And because my job is a little different in that I am more heavy-handed on band movements, and I work directly more with the tour manager, as opposed to we have a production coordinator that handles a lot more of the driver movements and things. Usually those are the early kind of things of what I feel like in the past of what I've done in this role is really once the drivers get to the venue and they get parked, we got to get them to sleep. That is like first priority list on that. Whereas now that's been done, coffee for me is like, okay, we got to get our staff coffee. Like that's a very important. Catering coffee is always kind of hit or miss, but finding a local spot really puts people back in, just like back at their top self. And it's another way, again, community component of bringing the outside in. If I'm bringing the outside in, people feel like they're less in a concrete building. And if that's tasting delicious local beans, if you will, then we gotta go for that. And then
it's luxury.
It is a luxury. And I'm very thankful that we take the time to prioritize that because, again, it starts your day off just like you would at home, let's try to find that way. And then fast forward, the middle part of my day, I also do ticketing. So I'm prepping tickets, getting those requests in from management, from radio, from our A party, anybody from those guests, family guests. That can take, depending on the show, it can take an hour or it can take 3 hours if it's a national show and we have bajillion comps out. So that kind of takes the middle part of my day often, as well as getting the band now back to the venue for all things show.
What time do you usually get the band?
It varies. So they kind of get to hang at a hotel for half of the day. So it depends on hotel checkout for them. But usually in the 2 o'clock to 4 p.m. time frame, they'll get back. They don't do a sound check. They've been playing these songs for quite a long time. Yeah. So they're like, Indian Outlaw, we know that one. So for them, they don't necessarily do a sound check. So we get them back part of the middle of the day. And then, I fast forward into working on after show food for A party band. And then kind of working towards the back half of the evening is really sending out the next day's list, prepping for the next day. As long as in the in-between fires don't happen, which they always do. But,
has a fire never just not happened?
It's what we do though. We're like firemen, fire people in terms of that's where the advancing on the front end and why you can't just advance a show on the same day because you're prepping for the inevitable of something is going to go wrong or something is going to happen and you need to act, whether it be the runners are taking forever that day because traffic's bad, or there's nowhere to park. Baltimore, that was last weekend, so there's all these little things that you can't plan for, but for the things that you can plan for, it is important to really reach out, think ahead. And again, like I said a little bit earlier, finding those things that may inevitably fall through the cracks or things that you have to be looking for that may or may not happen just to prep. And so the day of show stuff really is everything's already here, everything's already done. It's just the execution to get to the show and really trying to, I guess, fireproof whatever it is to make sure when the fires arise, whether that be this person's not showing up or they didn't find their tickets at will call, even though the envelope's there, of course. They just can't find it. All those things that will happen, that you're prepared and you have the right headspace to attack it and really again, make sure it gets done.
So showtime comes. What are you doing during show?
So during show is kind of my moment to really get things done without a lot of people asking me questions. So it's my 90 minutes of wow, okay, I can take this moment and I can prep towards tomorrow. If I have a few flights that I need to book for, future on, it is my little window of time that I feel like when the band's on stage and when Tim is on stage, I can really just...
And the crew is all working the show.
The crew's all working. I can make sure all my runner is fully in the loop of how the out's going to happen, whether it be, after show is going to go here, or we got to take these band members back to the hotel because they're flying out tomorrow. Like, all of those T's are crossed and I's are dotted. That's that moment to really just, like, be able to... Take that exhale again. We did it. The show is happening. Yes, we did it. Now let's finish this out and let's prep for tomorrow.
Amazing. And then you load out. You do it again the next day.
Push, play, repeat. That's what
Gorgeous.
It is. Yeah.
So you mentioned coffee is a one small way to kind of like, bring something to your community and build this, teamwork. Bring something of home to them. To your crew. What are do you have any touring traditions or bus traditions or anything that you love to treat your whole community with?
Man, I mean, we don't get a lot of off days like with, country touring in general. We get a few more with Tim. Just, it always depends on where your tour shows are and if you're out west and things like that. But always finding a way for like a hotel hang. Of whether that be, we've done movies before where an artist will rent out a theater, which is really fun. I've done just like parking lot parties, which are super fun. Yes. Brings camaraderie, and because a lot of times, the crew and band schedule is very different. And that if there is some kind of party after the show, a lot of times the crew, they don't often get to attend because they're working. And so like to be able to have those moments of whether it be the end of tour party or whether it be the parking lot party at a hotel or a movie kind of thing, it really helps bring the camps together. And that's not even just like the camp that you work with. If you have openers on the show, that you can really take time to build that camaraderie. And it's super important, because if you don't, if no camp goes above and beyond or extends to be that bridge, like it won't ever happen, because we're all so busy. Yeah. And it's not that it's not that it doesn't want to happen. It's just like nobody has time.
You got to schedule in.
You got to make the olive branch happen. Somebody's got to be that. And it is always so helpful to whether you have a taco truck or whether you just take that extra hour and be like, oh, we don't need to get home at 6 a.m. on Sunday. Like, let's take an extra hour here in this parking lot and decompress. Let's not be in a rush and really just have some hangs. Because again, that's where these moments, this is why I do what I do for the community. If it's just put my head down and work all the time, like I could do something else and sleep in my own bed. Yes. It's the camaraderie of working with people and getting to know people, and honestly people that you see more than your own family, like your own blood family or your spouse or your whomever that person is in your life. Like, these people quickly become your family because you see them on the daily. And so it's very important to have those decompressing moments. And one of mine on the bus that's my favorite to do, and it often keeps me up way too late, is just to literally pass your phone with music.
Yes.
It's like a DJ moment where you go in a
circle.
Call
it aux roulette.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. And it's literally just a way of getting to know new music, getting to know the people around you, remembering old songs that you've forgotten about. And it's literally so simple, but one of the greatest moments that I look back and remember of just sitting around on the bus, talking and having great conversations and listening to music. It's moments that when I decide one day to not do this, those are the moments that I'm going to remember the most, not the fires that we somehow, stamped out, not the runner that somehow left and didn't do its last pickup. All those things I hope I forget about.
Yeah.
It's the moments in which I made some of the strongest bonds with people so quickly that I will never forget. Yeah. And those are the moments that you do have to fight for and you do have to make a priority, because if you don't, they won't happen.
They won't happen. Wow. What was the first gig you ever worked?
So, got out of grad school with nutrition.
Yep.
Kind of halfway through that, very long story short, realized my husband's on the road.
Yep.
And he was kind of in his early years of learning that some shows give you basically a bucket of chicken with no biscuits from KFC. Yeah. And so I'm in school and I'm like, man, I thought I would work with athletes, and starting to hear his experiences of the road and some clubs that he was playing at, and just thought, man, maybe I could take nutrition on the road. Like, how do I incorporate this holistic, like, wellness side of things that I love, but also the love that I have for music? And so fast forward, finished grad school, and had an opportunity. I was so burned out of school. I've been in school for forever. And but I was thankful, but burned out. And Dane at the time was playing with a girl named Raylyn.
Oh yeah.
And who's great, fantastic, but she's also type 1 diabetic. And so he had said, Lolo, I know you're burned. I know you're kind of tired of school. And he said, you have this summer off, and then you kind of have to figure out what you want to do. And he was like, we need a merch girl. Why don't you just come on the road and sell some T-shirts? We can hang out, go out on off days, and you can kind of get to know the road, and it be kind of like your internship, if you will, if this is something that you want to do. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Gets me out of the house, and I don't have to think about textbooks right now. And I get to be around Raylyn, who's fantastic, but also a type 1 diabetic. So hopefully I can incorporate some of the things that I learned and help her, be an asset for her for all things meals and fitness. And so very long story short, that 2 months of selling T-shirts somehow has now been 10 years. And
it worked out.
Yeah, it definitely worked out. And touring, as anyone would say, like, it caught me. And it was something that I never really expected that I would be at it. Touring in an element like that, it wasn't something I was planning for. It wasn't necessarily a dream, in that capacity. But it's somewhere that I feel like I've found purpose. I feel like I've found a way to do what I love and really help others. But almost in a way of carving my own path, because my teachers were like, what? You're doing what? Yeah. And it's like, I'm just trying to listen and observe what I think is needed, and finding what's needed, and finding an outlet to be myself and help. And somehow now it's a full circle moment for me to be with Tim, who takes nutrition and fitness
to end up on this tour is like,
he takes it so seriously. And so I'm very honored, to even be there and use that as a way to learn, and the fitness truck capacity that he has out there, as well as just, being a liaison to his chef and helping with the meals that we have out there on the road. And so it truly is a full circle moment for me. And if this is this is no way of saying I feel like I'm done right now, but if this is the last tour that I inevitably do, I feel like I've hit my goal. I've checked the box, and I'm very thankful that I've gotten to see it at this level and really be able to, find a way to use all the things that I love and do it and put food on the table. And
keeping all your passions in one. So is your husband still playing on the road with Raylyn, or who's he with?
No, he's with Kane Brown.
Brown now.
A lot has happened in 10 years. For his career, and I'm just so stupid proud of him. Like, he's worked so hard, and it's really helped me learn, yes, I'm on the crew side. I see what it takes to work your way up in different roles and things on the crew side, the schedule for crew, but also know like the band schedule as well. And often there's like this rivalry between band and crew of like, they don't do anything, or no, they don't do it, this whole thing. And being able to see what he's done and how much prep work goes into his job. Yes, his day looks a little different from mine, but it helps us both to be able to understand our roles and how every role is important. And you can't do one without the other.
Right.
And you can't point fingers and say the band doesn't do anything, and the band can't point fingers and say the crew doesn't do anything.
Right.
And so it helps both of us having that. But it also makes our relationship even stronger, because we have to be even more intentional when we're home of, we're going separate directions all the time. How do we get back to center and be that best person for each other, be that best advocate, be that best number one fan, but at the same time, the reality is our lives are living different directions. So we have to be overly intentional when we're home to be centered and be with one another. And, they do say absence makes the heart grow fonder. So I think there is some level to that of not being around one another all the time. But there's also this level of balance that, you do have to make time. And this year, especially in the 10 years that I've done it, has been a challenge in terms of just traveling, because the first part of this tour, when it started off, I think we almost went 2 months without seeing one another. And
because he was out when you were back?
He was out when I was back, and vice versa. And our tour started simultaneously pretty similar, which is good in some ways, bad in others. Good that, none of us are home when the other person isn't. We're both kind of streamlined there. But bad when, you do miss each other and you're having to make extra, on a busy schedule and a busy show day of trying to find, again, that those check-in moments and ways to be back to center. But we're both leaning on the fall being a lot lighter and hoping that scale will balance back to where, we can dream again, take some trips again, and really, find that reconnect that these jobs oftentimes make you sacrifice. But at the end of the day, every year, we check in with one another and we're, do you still want to do this? Do you still want to do this?
Yeah.
Like, what do we, just to make sure it's worth it. Because
you both have the window to each other's lives though. That is the most insane empathy you can have for a spouse. You know exactly what their days are like. But then it's also you're on different tours. You don't get to be together.
Yeah.
When can that happen again?
That only lasted for about 6 months, and it's very crazy when we actually do have a show together. It happens maybe once a year. It won't happen probably this year, but last year we had a show together where I actually got to see him, but it does leave those moments of I get to go see him in July. They're playing Fenway, and I'm making a trip into it, and I'm so stoked. I get to go out there, and it does sound cool to maybe be a part of the same tour, but at the same time, when I'm out there seeing him, I don't want to be working. I want to be his number one fan. I want to be the person in the audience with my phone up, being proud of my man and screaming with the top of my lungs, he's mine. That's what I want to be. I don't want to be busy running around trying to make
waiting
sure,
on him, actually.
Or getting the band to the stage or right. Certain things like that. Again, it has that balance, but I think I go back to that moment of, when he's playing, I want to be all about him. I don't want to have to try to work and balance those things, because it's just that often can become too difficult too, Yeah.
And I love that you're saying just, how intentional you have to be with the time that you do have together. And because wow. But you're about to have a break.
Yes, about to have a break.
Exciting.
And I was also going to say too, if you're part of the same team or the same tour, having that outlet, you're only going to be talking about the same things, and that often can't be healthy either. So having that disconnect and having separate work life, even though they're similar in some ways, is very healthy for an XL for us. Because again, that's another thing we've talked about is just maybe it would make things simpler if we were on the same tour, but at the same time, maybe it wouldn't, because we'd all have the same grievances or. In this case, in the job that I do, I might be his boss, and that could cause a whole nother set of interesting conversations, And so it's just, I think for us, you just have to find what works per couple. And like I said, every year we do a review, and that's what's important for us as far as moving towards the next year. And at the end of the day, what's most important is each other, and that is the priority. And if anything shifts from our job causing that priority to shift, then it's going to go away, because at the end of the day, the priority is each other, and that is what we stand on.
Beautiful. I love that. But
we do get a break soon.
You get a break soon.
Yes, I have my last 3 shows this weekend of this tour. We have a few shows coming up in August, but July is my moment to decompress, which is extremely important, from a wellness standpoint. And
how do you recommend? What are some great ways to detox? After detox and just totally get right with yourself and with your spouse, with your family, post tour?
Yeah, great question. So I'm still kind of processing how I'm going to do it. I think everybody needs to find their
Come on
own
the Gigs
outlet.
podcast first.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. But, for me, I jokingly told my boss just last week, I was like, hey, July 1st is like our first off day since basically February, where there's no emergencies that need to be high. I said, I'm throwing my phone in my pool and there's no one that's going to be contacting me. Like, there's no need to. Like, July 1st is mine. And I think that goes to creating boundaries for yourself. That is something that I've learned in this job more than I've learned in any other job of my life. And it could be an age thing. It could be just this job where you have to be intentional about carving out boundaries and knowing yourself and knowing like what those look like to you, what you're willing to do and what you're willing not to do. And you have to be forthcoming about that to the people around you, because if you're not, then we're just in the season in society of where people just constantly take. And it's not to say like this is just this camp. It's anywhere that you work for, because everybody needs something, right? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, whatever, if that's putting out an email and an automatic whatever response of, hey, I'm out of the office. Like, corporations do that all the time. Why is that not more here? It's like trying to find those gaps, find those boundaries that you can carve, because we often are told in this industry, like, oh, if you miss a gig for a wedding, somebody can take your job. Well, I find that just the worst
That's
ever.
Got to change.
It's got to change.
Yeah.
And that's part of the culture in which we work. And those are things that, again, the culture's got to change, because other jobs, you can do that. Absolutely. No one's going to take your job. And let me just say, if you are well, like, established at what you do and well thought of, and as long as they know, like, you're not just trying to get out of things, like you really have a family emergency or really have something, like, do it. Like, you can't continue to sacrifice everything for what? Because at the end of the day, the jobs will come and go. Mm-hmm. Your family will not. And again, that could be an age thing for me. But I often make that very, outwardly spoken, like, hey, if something ever happens at home, I love you guys, but I'm out. Like, But
didn't it take a good bit?
It did take
there?
A very long time. And again, I think that comes with being established. I think that comes with, knowing yourself and knowing your value and your worth. But I hope that anytime when I talk with people just starting in this industry, I try to always pour that into them, that, it's not something you sub out for this, and this. But if it's something very important, like a wedding, or, you had a family member pass away, like, mm-hmm. and you really feel like you need to be there, like, do it. Like, because if the job itself doesn't invite you to come back, then you don't need that job.
Yeah.
Because
if that's what's important to you.
That's not part of the culture that I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
I'll find another job where they take me, for my worth. And at the end of the day, they honor me when I want to go to my brother's wedding. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, I'm a part of a camp where they do that. But they're also seasoned and they're older, and they understand that people have obligations that are important. Mm-hmm. And, it's important that you don't miss a wedding and things such as that.
Those are some boundary examples. I was going to ask for a few more. So it's kind of like when you're, let's say you just did 3 shows, you're back home, it's a Monday, you're advancing shows, but let's say it's 9 p.m. and you're getting texts and emails. What does that look like in someone in your position, when you're trying to establish boundaries? Is this job for 7 months just that's all you can think about?
Great question. So for me, I think halfway through the tour, it took a couple of months. Tour prep on the front end of it is always going to be head down, got to get this done. But I realized really quickly, like a hamster on a wheel, eventually you're going to get tired and you're not going to be your best version of yourself. And so I started, and again, this comes with experience. This comes with me trying to carve out those boundaries. I realized very quickly that I had to step away on Monday. Monday was my day. Mm-hmm. Sunday is travel day, so I don't really count that because you got flights, you got people.
You're still putting out fires.
I'm still putting out fires. I started to realize that tickets and things didn't really come until Tuesday. So Monday is my day that I found that works with my schedule, that I can be a little less behind a computer, screen time, things like that. And it's important because if you don't check out, you're not going to be your best version of yourself when you check back in.
Right.
when you fly out or bus out on Wednesday. And so for me, it's about knowing myself and knowing how to be my best version for when I get to the gig and when I have to be on call, you know? And so going back to your initial texting question at 9 p.m., if I happen to look at it and I see that it can wait till tomorrow, I'm not going to answer it. Yeah. And at this point, I have literally learned within the last year I got rid of my Apple Watch. And that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time.
Wow.
And gone back to a normal watch because because it's a distraction.
Yes.
And it started to take my headspace away. When I get a text, I'd immediately go into, I got to look at that. And going back to me talking about being that very intentional space with time with my spouse, I don't want to hear bings on my watch when I keep my phone away when we're trying to have time together. Yeah. Like it immediately takes my brain wavelength and takes me out of that moment with them. And I realize it's not worth it. Yeah. I don't have to be on call all the time. Yeah. And it all goes back to you having those conversations with your superiors and making sure that they know, like, hey, past 8 p.m. or past 7 p.m., if it's not a work day, meaning if we're not on the road and it's a show day, then I'm not probably going to answer my email. So if it's an emergency, like, and you need me, call me. Yeah. But if it's not an emergency and you email me, I will pick right back up the next morning. No worries. You'll get your answer. And everybody's on that same page for that. Yeah. And as long as the people in those seats are on the same page, then exhale, breathe, don't worry about it. Let it wait till tomorrow.
Yes. I love that. But I think, if your direct superior is saying that doesn't work for me, then, and that's something that's important to you, maybe that's just not the job for you.
Correct.
Maybe you got to hustle for a couple years to earn that boundary. Mm-hmm. I feel like, because this is an 18-hour day type of job. Mm-hmm. If that's something you're willing to do and put in the hard work, then I think, you can earn boundaries later on.
And I think life is in seasons too, right? So I'm looking forward, even on the hard days, I'm looking forward and beyond to when this balance of the scale comes back in the fall. You know, like, it's not going to be like this forever. So even on the hard days, it's like, and like I said, day 3 is always when I have a little bit more time in my bunk where I have to do some self-coach. Yes. But for me, that self-coach goes to, okay, I'm tired, but I'll be home tomorrow. Yeah. Like, and so whatever that is for you in that routine, or looking forward and realizing, like, yeah, I got to answer this text right now. My boss really needs me to answer this text at 9 p.m., but this tour's only 3 months, or this tour's only 4 months. I signed up for this. This is what I signed up for. And you learn from each tour, and you take those moments and you take those things to the next tour to have those conversations and make sure that, you carve out those boundaries each time. Those are the little life lessons, things that you learn as well. What you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. And when you go back in for an interview for the next tour or for the next job, you set up those expectations. And if they still give you thumbs up and they still want you for that job, then they know full right ahead of time, like, hey, these are her boundaries. Yes. This is what's important to her. This wedding is important to her. We signed up for her because we value her and we really want her to be a part of our team. Even with these boundaries that she's asked for, we honor that. So it's like those little things that you take along from each tour.
So you're just talking a lot about the lessons you're learning. I'd be really interested in hearing a lesson you had to learn the hard way.
Ooh, man. I one quick one that, like, it happens, but it won't ever happen again. It was a first tour. And, I helped a lot with meet and greets at that point. Still do. Actually, meet and greets, this is a whole nother topic for another time, but I love meet and greets. It's literally one of my favorite things. Some people will be like, I hate meet and greets, but the interaction with people, again, goes back to my heart. But the first gig that I had, did meet and greets for Ray. And it was one of those that sometimes we would do autographs, sometimes we wouldn't. And, you take direction from the tour manager. And not trying to throw him under the bus, but you take direction from the tour manager. And he had told me, I'd set up the step and repeat and everything. And he told me, Lolo, we're not doing signings today. It's pictures only. We don't have time for signings. I said, okay, cool. So go set up. And normally I carry a Sharpie with me. Always have a Sharpie. Like, it's not something that I have probably 5 in my bag right now. Like, I guess we speak, just sitting over on the couch, and for this life lesson. And so didn't bring one. And so we get to the meet and greet, we're an opener artist, so we've got long line of folks. And, it happens to be where he asks me, she's like, I want to sign this, the artist, and so I'm like, he's like, Lolo, you got a Sharpie. And I'm sitting here like, no, you told me not to bring one because we weren't doing signings. Okay, so I have to rush back, and it wasn't like convenient to go back to get a Sharpie. Naturally, by the time I came back to this meet and greet, the opportunity had been lost.
Yeah.
I had kind of gotten some disappointing looks of like, you should always come prepared. But, for me, it was like, well, you said, kind of thing. So fast forward to that is just always be prepared and expect the unexpected. You know what I mean? And I think that little lesson with a little Sharpie, funny enough, has taught me so much more about the big picture of always expect the unexpected, of whether it be, coordinating transport or flight backups. If I know that it's a particular bad flight or something that I know there's a time-sensitive window in which we have to, I'm already shopping like flight 2, flight 3 options at this point. Doesn't mean that I'll schedule them, and sometimes I do. Side note, you can book 2 airlines on the same day. You can't book the same airline with 2 flights, but you can book 2 different airlines with backup flights and
same names?
Credit. Same names. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a little side bit, but I do that a lot. And that was a hint or a travel agent that had taught me that.
Smart.
And so again, always expect the unexpected, because you can always use that flight credit later. But it's those little things of if you're thinking of it, you might as well prepare for it. And that comes with experience too. But if you're thinking, like, I'm trying to think of a good example that if you're getting that nudge that you think traffic is going to be very bad, send your runner 30 to 45 minutes ahead of time, because if that's that important and it's in a time sensitive window, you don't have anything that's higher priority than to get the band back. So what are you going to use them for at the venue? Just go ahead and send them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you'd rather them be over there for an hour sitting there waiting for valet to have them continue to circle than, get into a situation where they're now hitting traffic and they're 30 minutes late. So man. It's always, again, trying to like expect the unexpected. And that little Sharpie taught me that little lesson.
Wow. I always have a Sharpie as well.
I do
and
now,
a flashlight because that's amazing.
Yep.
I want to get into rapid fire.
Okay, here we go.
So just first thing that comes to mind. All right. Your first concert.
Oh, my first concert. It was Aerosmith and Kiss.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was one of those where they were like different openers for each other. They kind of changed it up. So the time I saw him Kiss was an opener for Aerosmith. Went to go see Aerosmith and then very much became a Kiss fan after it. Those guys just freaking rocked the house down and blew my brain that these old dudes were in high heels and platformers and just crushing it. So first concert.
Love that. Bunk preference.
Middle.
What side?
Side doesn't necessarily matter as much as my priority is really middle, top, bottom. If I'm going,
you earn that middle though.
Yeah, but middle, top, bottom. Top I was on for a long time,
yeah.
And I feel like top kind of rocks you to sleep, whereas bottom, if you like a hum and you like the bumpies. I'm also tall, so I'd rather climb than crawl.
Girl, I couldn't reach the top. That didn't work. This is cool for you. Best after show food.
Ooh, best after show food.
In an ideal world.
We got to know, like, you got to give me a budget. See, that's where I immediately go.
No budget.
No budget. Man, what's going to be prepared? What's going to be hot? What's going to be the best? I look.
Where's gluten-free, vegan?
Yeah. Local. I always go local.
Okay.
Can I say that?
I love that.
Local, and then it just depends on the gig. Like some gigs, they want pizza, local pizza.
Yeah.
Variety of that. We do Italian a lot.
Okay.
Italian's really good out here. Funny enough, chili cheese dogs. I think Tim posted about that the other day. Like, he loves a good chili cheese dog. Who doesn't love a good chili cheese
Oh my
dog?
gosh, yeah.
So it really just depends. But I also go with what's going to be the freshest, what's going to be not get soggy on the bus.
Yep.
So I'm trying to think of all of those things into it. But at the end of the day, local is always better. I always try to support local.
That takes more time. So good for you. favorite venue you've ever gone to?
Ooh, arena, shed, like what is this like?
Of all time.
Well, Guilford gets like a throw up to. I gotta throw them up just because they go above and beyond trying to create community and trying to create culture, and that just hits home to me.
Yep.
Whether that be from the catering spread, whether it be from the playground, they call it the adult playground. So like a lot of times camps will do 2 nights, 3 nights there to where you can stay on property and sit and have a bonfire. Crews actually able to decompress a bit, to be a part of the community a hang. And so, I think a lot of venues are really following that plan. Like Box Center is great. They've always had, they're the arena side that really try to go above and beyond. I mean, I could name a lot, like St. Augustine. I like a lot, but I mean, it's the ones that really try to make it homey because they realize how often we're away from home. And the ones that do cultivate that into their venue is always going to stand out. It's always going to stand out.
I love that. Do you have a favorite Tim McGraw song, or is there a song that you're like, oh, I'm going to run out because I really want to see this one?
Man, I'm often so busy. I'm like, I will say one that has grown on me in the 2 years that I've been there, that I will say I grew up a 90s kid loving Tim McGraw from the beginning, loved Faith first, and he'd be okay with that. Faith was awesome.
Same.
But became a Tim fan because of Faith. And, so I knew a lot of his hits from that season, kind of transitioned into not listen to a lot of country and the 2000s, 2010s, kind of, I love all music. But the one that really, going back to one that I didn't know about until last year was Humble and Kind. Like, how in the world did I miss that? And how in the world last year?
I could have guessed that would be your favorite.
He finished his set last year with that, and I just love this. It's a slower ballad, which you wouldn't think an artist would ever finish a concert with a slower ballad. Like that's usually you end the audience like on the way up, and I found that to be such a moment for him, like, and such a testimony to him as a human of what he wants the audience to go out and to be. And I think from this year, from last year, of just learning that song and the meaning behind it, it's a challenge, and it's a moment where even on the hard days, again, going back to that, like, I need to be humble and I need to be kind, even when I don't feel like I want to be, because I'm human. But at the end of the day, like, this song is made for everybody, and everybody can relate to it, and it's a good just message to send out people and send us on our way of to start the day and to end the day.
A little pat on the head and go be good. Go be good. I love that.
Yeah.
And to close out, who is the most inspiring person that you've gotten to work with?
Inspiring person I've got. So can you like,
or maybe your hero? Yeah, I don't know. This could be anything, but pertaining to your career, someone that maybe on the early on or currently that is really just the way that they conduct themselves is really inspiring to you.
Sure. I feel like I have a lot of people that I could probably pin that on just because I am where I am because of the people that poured into me.
Yeah.
But one that I'll say that I've had the most time with is a guy named Bill Cracknell. He was the tour manager for Chris Young when I was there for 4 years. And I just enjoyed so much. I often tell young youth, I'm not anymore, but here, that's not fine. I don't care. Of just like when you're getting a new job or when you're trying new things, like the way to know what you want to do in this world, and whether it be touring, whether it be anything, at least what I've found, is to try it. And if you try it, you don't like it, then you know you don't want to do it. If you try it and you like it, then it's like, okay, let's see what it opens up to. And then on the second half of that is to be a sponge. And I think for me, I didn't come into this like knowing a lot about the touring industry. I knew I liked music. I knew I liked, fitness but I didn't know a lot about this industry until I tried a lot of aspects of this industry. And that's where I've learned and what it's made me to be who I am. And then I've had, like I said, a lot of mentors, a lot of people pour into me, and Bill being one of the biggest, just because I had so much time with him, but also he had the heart to teach. And I think it's important for people who are starting out and maybe what we call green in this industry is to latch on to people who are teachers, who want to be mentors, because there's not everybody is that, but there are people out there that are. And when you find them, stick with them and stay with them until you feel like you've hit ceiling and feel like you've gotten to a point where there's no more necessarily not room to grow, because we can always grow. Everybody can always learn as long as you're willing, but the ceiling might get more narrow. And then you move to another camp or you move to another job, that ceiling space gets higher or that mountain gets taller, and eventually one day you keep climbing or you keep reaching, you keep learning, you keep being a sponge. Then that ceiling and that mountain, you'll get to the top of it and you just see that there's another mountain ahead of you, even bigger. And that's the challenge of growth. That's the challenge of really surrounding yourself with people that are always going to make you better. And I have nothing but mad appreciation and many thanks for all the people who've poured into me in this career, because it's got me where I am and it's made me who I am. But, you know, like I said, Bill is one that I still call. We still have catch-in or touch-up moments, you know, call moments and check-in moments, I should say. And, you know, it's interesting because we're on a different, like he'll call me now asking certain things, you know, so it's not saying that the table's reversed. It's just now it's gotten 360. Whereas before I'm calling my mentor and he's pouring into me. And now I think I'm at a point, which is kind of neat, to where it's moved a little bit more in a 360 circle of where I can help him and I can pour into him in certain things. Which is wonderful because I never want to be one that only takes. Like I always want to be someone who gives to and really is able to be helpful. And I'm thankful that relationship, friendship, mentorship is kind of mutual now. And I'm not just taken. Like I can actually help him because he's helped me so much.
And then you now are at a different place, but at a different mountain to where you can be mentors to others.
Absolutely. And I love that. That's a big part of my heart. It always has been. Before I did this world, I was a college volleyball coach. And so really just being able to mentor and to love and to be just guidance, you know, it's something that is very near and dear to my heart, you know, and welcome any coffee meetings, any dates, any things of just to be able to talk through things and really just be a listening ear to whomever that's wanting to start this or they get into it and they're frustrated about certain things or need to walk through things or need help creating boundaries. Like, you know, I finally feel like, again, maybe it's I've been in this 10 years or maybe it's I'm about to hit 40, you know, whatever that life is that I'm at a position where I can really pour into people and finally start to pour into where so many people have poured into me, and I get to finally do that to others. But I also say, like, I'm still learning and I'm still finding people. You know, I work with a guy named McGraw now, and tour manager for Tim. He's been a tour manager for everyone, and he's increased that ceiling even more for me of learning, you know, his world and what he does. And I'm just, again, I can't say enough many times of how I've been so fortunate to be surrounded by so many great people in the business. I'm just, I don't know how to say it other than I'm very grateful.
And now you're just giving all of the life advice and the lessons you've learned down. So I just love it so much. Lolo Kinser, thank you for being on the Gigs podcast. You're amazing.
Thanks for having me. It's been an honor.